Hi, welcome to Tya Talk. I am David Strickle, creator of the Tya Mindset Practice. And we're going to talk about belief systems, something we talk about quite a bit. The Tya practice is a belief system, but we're going to talk about true belief systems and this concept that there are some beliefs that are true and other beliefs are just this made up thing that no one should pay attention to. The truth is, and we've learned this from the Stream's teachings, is that everything that exists beyond universal law is a creation of consciousness. But according to Source, there is no right or wrong creation of consciousness. In fact, according to Source, there is no right or wrong creation. So whatever we're perceiving from our human perspective, and we are all operating in a human perspective, as long as we're in physical, whatever we're perceiving and believing is truth for us. And that's really hard for a lot of people to digest. We see a lot of polarity in our world, certainly, and it's definitely seems to be increasing, more polarity than ever, less allowing of other people's belief systems. We're seeing more people becoming so polarized in their beliefs, believing that their thing, whatever it is, their belief system is truth and the only truth. There are very few belief systems that really allow for any and all universal truths to be respected and appreciated. So that's a unique aspect to Tya, or somewhat unique to Tya. I know that there are other spiritual philosophies that sort of teach this thing. I certainly don't claim to have a monopoly on source information or universal law or any of those things. But the Tya practice is unique in that we are creating a belief system stripped of as much ego, as much matrix as possible, and rooted fully in universal law. Because from all of the Stream's teachings and everything that I've applied in my life in 55 years of living, I have come to understand that, yes, my reality is my own creation of consciousness. That the things that I believe that I will experience happen. The things that I fear experiencing often happen. So, really, whatever I'm focusing on is what I'm going to experience, whether it's wanted or not. It doesn't matter. The universe isn't judging that. So, I am creating an experience as I move through vibrational flow that has this mix of positive and negative aspects, wanted and unwanted aspects, as we all do. And the more I make adjustments to my own belief system to detune fear and judgment, the more aligned with source I feel myself becoming. And I realize that I am becoming more aligned with source simply because I am more joyous. I am more relaxed. There's no anxiety present. And I am more appreciative of all belief systems. That's how I know that I'm allowing more source into my mindset and I've detuned the ego. The ego at that point just becomes a discerner of preference. My ego wants to experience this and does not want to experience that. That's really the purpose of ego, is to be this discerner of preference to move us through this human experience. Because if you project in and somehow, and I don't think it's possible, but if you project it into a physical vehicle as a pure source being with no ego present whatsoever, you would not have a preference for anything. You wouldn't manifest anything because you would just be in this state of appreciation of all that is. But when you're in this state of appreciation of all that is, you're in a static state. You are not expanding in any way. That's why I can say with great conviction that I do not believe any physical environment's goal ultimately is utopia. It may be something that we strive for, but I don't believe it's something that we're going to achieve. And I don't think there's anything wrong with striving for it. We are expansive beings, so we want improvement. We want to make our lives easier. But notice that the more things we create to make our lives easier, what happens is that new creation, that the intention behind was to make life easier just creates more problems along with the solution that was intended in the first place, because we're in a polarized environment. So anything that you create that's a solution is going to have positive and negative aspects to it. Anything you create, period, is going to have positive and negative aspects to it without fail. And that's to ensure our continued expansion in this environment. If we ever reached a point where we started solving every problem, sort of checking off every box and not creating any new problems, and we reached the finish line of solving all of our problems, that would signal the end of our physical environment. And even that's not a problem, because we are eternal energetic beings here having a temporary physical experience. So even if we did think our way, create our way into the ending of the earth environment, and we all know we're nowhere near that, because we're certainly nowhere near perfection here. But even if we did do that, our energetic signature would simply reform some other type of creation. So when you hear all of this doomsday talk, and as long as I have lived, I have heard doomsday talk on numerous topics. The latest one I heard very recently was about how AI is going to take over, and AI ultimately is going to do away with humanity. And the stream has said that humanity is at this interesting sort of turning point. It's a very interesting time to be alive because of the hyper creation of technology that we have encountered in the last 50 or so years. And here we are at the point of creating technology that is the technology that creates us. Artificial intelligence, robotics, all of these things. And we see a world that is coming very quickly, where this artificial intelligence is going to do a lot of thinking on our behalves and is going to do a lot of work on our behalf as well. And you have to wonder, well, what's humanity going to do at that point? Well, the fear mongering, of course, always pops up. We're going to have a whole lot of poor, starving people because no one's going to be able to find work. And there's going to be greed, and there's going to be people at the top of the financial pyramid that are benefiting from this until they realize they don't have any consumers to continue to drive commerce, because no one has a job because AI does everything. I could see that being a possibility, but I also see a future where we are simply creating new things and becoming more sophisticated beings that will keep us mentally stimulated and will also keep us in the cycle of commerce. We will figure it out. I know that we will, because that's just the nature of humanity. We're going to figure out a path through every crisis that we create for ourselves, and we create them all. And notice, every crisis that has come along that was supposed to wipe out humanity never does. And people in the matrix who are polarized will hear that and say, yeah, but people die. We heard that about the pandemic, right? People died. Yes, people died during the pandemic, and people died before the pandemic. And maybe more died during the pandemic, but it certainly wasn't everyone. And that's also rooted in the fear of death and the judgment of death as should not be, which to me is the silliest judgment of all, because we know that death is inevitable. We know that we're going to exit this physical vehicle. We know that we're going to return to our completed state. We know that's going to happen, and yet we judge death so harshly because we want our lifetime to be this specific amount of time, and we have this ideal that the Matrix tells us to revere, and that we have to reach that mark. We need to be 80, 90, 100 years of age or even older if we want to do life right. We definitely have that notion that's out there. Yet we certainly hear of people that have far shorter lifespans, but made such a big impact in the time that they were here. A lot of people refer to these beings as old souls. And I certainly understand that, because it seems like sometimes there was a heightened enlightenment present. What was really present was a being coming and having that more sophisticated experience of challenge and never relinquishing their source connection in favor of diving into the matrix experience. That's what an old soul is. It's not really an old soul. We're all, if you were thinking in terms of linear time, I don't believe there's a freshly minted soul that is projecting into the sophistication that is humanity. We are all old souls, certainly, on a vibrational journey of expansion. So when we think about belief systems, and we think about religions and family traditions and government mandated belief systems and in cultural belief systems and all of these things, they are all human constructs, all of them. All of them are human constructs. And we do see a younger generation now questioning all of that stuff unlike ever before, because they're born up to speed with this time where we are becoming more sophisticated. We are understanding that all of these human belief systems are just human creation, and that perhaps we can create a new elevated belief system that pulls us out of that muck of fear and judgment that the matrix creates for us. And that's what Tya is. Tya is a belief system rooted in universal law. There are 4 pillars to Tya, and we have been very clear that there will never be anything more than that as the foundation of Tya. Those 4 things allow more source, detune your ego, detune fear and judgment, raise your vibration systematically throughout your lifetime, and have this magical vibrational journey, and add intention back into that so that you can still honor your ego as a discerner of preference, which is what it was meant to be all along, and have those human experiences that you discern as your preference that you want to have as you move through your vibrational journey. And you will notice that I have noticed that as I've raised my vibration systematically throughout my lifetime and detuned my ego, my desires are less needy. My desires are less specific. My desires are less about materialism, which is just another belief system that humanity has created, and more about just finding joy in my what already is now. And the Matrix doesn't like that. The Matrix is going to come along and say, no, 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 you can't find joy in your now. You need to be more. You need to be thinner. You need to look younger. You need to travel more. You need to have more investments. You need to have a new car. There's something that you need. You can't just be satisfied with where you are. That's wrong. That's a loser mentality. You can't think that way. We do hear that from the Matrix. But the great thing is that as you raise your vibration and spend more time in that source energy of appreciation of all that is, you understand authentically why you don't need all that stuff. You can experience it if you want to. I say that my ego still appreciates beautiful things and nice things and good food and all that sort of thing. There's nothing wrong with having the human experience. I'm not separating myself outside the human experience, but it's more of a wouldn't it be nice vibration to experience this thing. Wouldn't it be nice? But it's more of that than a vibration of, oh, I must, or I need to, or I'm less of a human being if I don't. Something's wrong with me if I don't have these things checked off. All of that is ego. All of that is ego. And when you detune your ego enough, you can really find joy in your now. In fact, I think it's the only cure for the anxiety that humanity is suffering. So many beings are in therapy and taking all sorts of antidepressants and things like that, really to regulate this anxiety of the comparison of yourself to what the matrix tells you you're supposed to be. The antidepressants and the things that we do to soothe ourselves are really just a soothing mechanism for our experience in the matrix. Period. And when you develop a mindset of detuning fear and judgment on a regular basis and make that your way of life, thus allowing your vibration to rise and allowing more source to be your experience while in physical, then you don't need all that stuff anymore. And it's a pretty wonderful way to live life. But one thing about the matrix is it has lots of, I call them tentacles lately. There's lots of little things built into the matrix that can grab hold of you and draw you back in. I'm not trying to stoke fear about the matrix. It's inevitable that you're going to go through this vibrational journey of getting drawn back into the matrix a little bit. Make that a fun part of your practice. That, oh, I'm DTS, or oh, I've had a spin out. Those are little terms that we use in the Tya practice to describe an experience where we've gotten ourselves drawn back into the matrix. And we understand that experience of getting drawn back into the matrix, or even just experiencing being down the spiral without the fear and judgment that draws us back into the matrix, all of that stuff is part of the practice. It's assumed that you are going to get drawn back into the matrix. Less and less and less as you practice, for sure. But as you go and move through your practice, you're going to get drawn back in less and less and less. So that's why there is a bit of discipline that you need to employ with the practice, because you are disciplining yourself to raise your vibration, which sounds, sort of counterintuitive, I know. But the discipline is about understanding that you can shift the mindset and shift the mindset back into the Tya practice mindset. And then your vibration will quickly catch up to that. And before long, that will just be your new habit. And maybe you do it for so long and life gets so good that you get a little lazy with it, as I have. And then when you get a little lazy with it, you have your spin out and you get pulled back into it. And then you create an event, usually for yourself, that will wake you up and make you realize, well, wait a minute, I'm back in the matrix. Here I am again. I'm experiencing fear and judgment. I thought I was through with this. Well, it's a never-ending journey. The matrix is a very powerful vibration that humanity has created over a long period of time. And here we are, born into it. We're certainly educated by it and indoctrinated into it, if you will. And it has a lot of functionality to keep you in it, even if you want to break free. And it speaks to your ego. And your ego is that fear and judgment portion of you, because source is not that. You have source in you. You are a being of source, absolutely. And as a being of source, that's that high vibration, loving yourself, appreciation of all that is in an authentic way. That is your source being. And you have access to it. It doesn't matter how old you are, how much money you have, what other belief systems that you have woven through in your lifetime. You have access to that source being. And the Tya practice is all about you going inward and learning to really unlearning the matrix and learning to allow that to be your natural operating system, which it was always designed to be that. But humanity created this matrix of beliefs that advanced us. It did its job. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not evil. It's not bad. It's not this cabal of people that are trying to bring you down. It's not. The matrix is something that served a purpose. And now as we create AI, as we are creating the technology that creates us, we have wised up to it. We now understand that, yes, there is a matrix of beliefs out there. Every type of human construct you can imagine is part of it. All of these human-created belief systems or functionalities of it. And we do not have to be part of that if we choose not to be. We can develop a mindset practice that moves us out of the matrix and allows us to experience life as beings of source. Void, or almost void, I always like to talk about vibrational dust. We don't completely void our egos, certainly. So what we're talking about doing is having a much higher ratio of source in our operating system than ego. But when you're in the matrix, ego is in the driver's seat. When you have anxiety going on, when you're needing to talk to therapists, and when you're on antidepressants and things like that, or you're using food or drugs or alcohol or sex or the internet, whatever it is, to distract yourself and soothe yourself from that anxiety that's present. If you can't stand to be in silence and be alone and just be with yourself in appreciation of all that is, then you've got some work to do. We all have work to do. Tya is work. Tya takes a bit of discipline for sure. And I do believe Tya takes community. The community aspect, I think, is very important. And that's why I'm talking about that a lot more lately, that this community aspect of getting, having some community with other practitioners of Tya, other Tyas, so that you can commune and share ideas and be in the vibration sometimes of other Tya practitioners is very, very valuable. And I want to make it clear, though, that it's not about separating yourself from everything else. Because when you're a Tya practitioner and you're allowing more source and you're appreciating all that is, you don't have to separate yourself. So this isn't about creating a Tya commune somewhere where we all go to live and we shut out the rest of the world except for people that believe the way that we do. That's a cult, and it's okay to be in a cult, but that's what that is. That's a different type of functionality than what the Tya practice is. The Tya practice, having some connection to community and then taking that higher vibrational version of you out into the world and interacting and appreciating everyone for their belief system is what the practice is. Being able to go to holiday functions and see your extended family, being able to continue a romantic relationship if you so choose with someone who doesn't believe this way, being able to live in whatever community you choose to live in, having your chosen human experience wherever, however you want, simply understanding universal law and operating your life via your belief system in a way that works in harmony with universal law, as opposed to the matrix belief systems. And there are endless matrix belief systems that actually serve to work in opposition of universal law. This concept that you're a victim, this concept that you have no power over your life, this concept that the rich are taking advantage of you, this concept that the government is out to get you, this concept that you're going to be abused or taken advantage of in some way out there, that the world is a scary place that you need to fear, this concept that if you are a certain type of person born at a certain time or of a certain race, that you are less than or you have disadvantages and something's wrong with you. All of these teachings are teachings of the matrix. All of them are about forming and fostering limiting beliefs. And it's not an evil cabal of human beings that are sitting around some galactic boardroom, charting the course for humanity, saying we're going to take advantage of all of them. Is there some thinking like that? Sure, there is. But what it is it's a vibration. It's a collective consciousness vibration that is a creation of humanity by humanity for humanity that has positive and negative aspects. And what we've seen occur is sort of a bolstering of the negative aspects. The fear and judgment elements of the matrix have become powerful vibrations that a lot of humanity are operating in. So the community aspect is important. I really wanted to stress that. That's why we're on social media. That's why we have the podcast. That's why we have the Patreon. I'm starting to call it sort of our learning center, where you can really start going deeper into these teachings, depending on where you want to go with our Patreon world. I love the fluidity of all of that, but having that connection to community and these discussions and the reminders, and if you're so guided to go into training, getting into some sort of our training programs and things like that, that stuff will help you with your practice. It's all here in service of your journey through the practice, wherever you are, whatever your budget is, from zero. Notice we do more free stuff than anything, to being able to invest heavily in your training, in your coaching, and all of that stuff. That's all just about your alignment with being able to have that experience. So that's why we continue to create lots of avenues to community in the practice. And certainly that's why I want to just keep talking about what the matrix is, what it's all about, because it's very easy to sort of get drawn back into it. And if we talk about it a lot and sort of get it all out on the table and really recognize it for what it is without fearing it and without judging it, as we know in the practice, if we fear it and judge it, we're right back in it. We're giving it life. We're giving it power. So that's the key, is to be able to recognize the matrix for what it is and appreciate it for what it's done for us, and recognize the fact that we don't have to be controlled by it. We can live outside the matrix. We can operate our human journey outside the matrix, even when we're really in it. We're just not being controlled by it anymore. And that is a glorious way to live life. And that's what I am sharing with all of you and guiding all of you to, if you so choose. It is always an option. There is no penalty. There is nothing wrong with taking a break from this or walking away from it or not believing in it at all. There's no dogma. There never will be dogma built into this. There are the 4 pillars, and that's all there will ever be, with lots of tools and things to help you with the 4 pillars. But the foundation are the 4 pillars of Tya, period, period, period. That's all there ever will be. And that is our belief system. And it's a chosen belief system. We are choosing to believe in source. We're choosing. But the lovely thing about it is that, from my experience and everyone else who has taken this journey, you don't have to just take my word for it and have faith. I'm not asking you to have faith. I'm asking you to open your mind to the concept of source and take these teachings and these tools and go inward and apply them and prove it to yourself so that you're beyond faith. I have evidence. I don't care if scientists aren't up to speed with this yet. I don't care if Neil deGrasse Tyson, isn't out talking about this stuff. I know that when I take this concept of source and understand it as appreciation of all that is and apply that in my life and apply that vibration, I feel better. My life goes better. I'm manifesting and attracting more of the experiences that I want to experience. And I'm just a happier person. And I'm not having to go to therapy. I'm not having to take any medication. I'm not having to do anything to experience authentic joy in my life, period. And if you don't achieve that experience and you are having to use faith on an ongoing basis, you either need to go deeper into the teachings and the practice so that you can move beyond that, or maybe it's just not the right thing for you at this time. But that's up to you to decide always. But the concept of faith, I do like that we've sort of woven into this territory in the last few minutes of this interaction. It's not about faith. It's about opening your mind to the possibility of what I call source. Talk so much I can't talk now. The possibility that source is a thing, period. And we leave a lot of, in fact, we leave complete room for interpretation of exactly what that is. You get to interpret that how you want. My interpretation of source, I'm very, very clear with, because that is what I've been channeling all these years, is that non-judgmental entity that is the source of all creation, that is universal, that is the larger part of all creation, meaning all of us and everything else. And I don't believe it's a he or a she. You can say they if you want. It does not have a specific path in mind for anything. If it did, we would all be living some sort of specific path, but we're not. We're here in this endless range of belief systems. And yes, there are popular belief systems that people sort of latch onto, because if you don't have a belief system, you're going to default into one no matter what. You're creating a belief system that is really a result of everything that you've experienced and how you've reacted to it so far in life. That's your belief system. Everybody has that. Everybody does. But when you have a certain set of experiences and a certain reaction to it, that will heavily influence these human created belief systems that people park themselves in. We've seen it with religion. We've seen it with cults. We've seen it in politics. These people that worship Donald Trump here in the United States, we're all very, very aware of them. They get a lot of airtime. They have assigned themselves to a belief system. He actually, as the brilliant marketer that he is, and I do believe he's a brilliant marketer, absolutely I do, he created this human constructed belief system that he was the principal of, if you will, that spoke to a specific group of people that he identified as an underserved market in the United States. And it worked. And it continues to work. And for them, it's truth. And if you're not one of them, it's easy to look and say, gosh, that's almost like a cult. They're worshiping this person. They're worshiping him no matter what. No matter what the evidence is, they refuse to believe anything but what he tells them to believe. That's the experience they're having. It's the experience they're choosing to have. There's nothing wrong with it in the eyes of Source. Source appreciates all creation. That is creation. So Source appreciates that. So as beings of Source, when you dip into fear or judgment around that topic, you are actually giving it life. You're giving it power. You're contributing to it. And you're creating a scenario for yourself where that is an opposition. That is an opposing belief system that you then believe must be battled somehow. And what happens when you start thinking that way? You lower your vibration. You're not in agreement with Source. Source is saying, no, I'm not going to go there. I am not going to judge people that follow Donald Trump. I'm not going to judge Catholics. I'm not going to judge atheists. I'm not going to judge any belief system. You're all here creating your own journey without the influence of the source of all creation. That may sound, sort of counterintuitive, The source of all creation, though, is simply that expansive source, that expansive energy that we know source to be. The source of all creation is also the source of your ego and the source of polarity, because it created these things to ensure its own expansion. Because when we, as projections of source, manifest into physical, into a polarized environment, and they all are, then we are moving through this journey where we are this sort of balance that's never completely balanced of source and ego. And the ego is driving us to separate from source, to create the obstacles that allows us to reemerge into that source connection and create a solution. And thus we expand. That's why it all exists. So all of these things, the scary politics, the scary AI, the scary pandemic, all of that stuff is our own creation to expand our consciousness eternally, way beyond physical. So even if we create something and it kills a section of society, we're viewing that death experience from the very limited human mindset or the human ego. And the Matrix tells us that death is bad. You should experience that. Nobody should. That death is wrong. You've got to stop death. But we all know that we can't. So that ultimately just lowers our vibration and automatically separates us more from source. So this Matrix is AI. If you think about it, Matrix is exactly that. Source created this matrix of thought and belief that is beyond it, but part of it, to create expansion, period. And if you look at what humanity is doing, we're just simply recreating the technology that creates us in the first place. We see that in fiction. What is fiction? Fiction usually has an antagonist and a protagonist, polarized, good, bad, and it has an experience that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the middle part of the experience always includes obstacles. A work of fiction that is two people met and agreed about everything, the end, is not very interesting, because there's no expansion in the experience. So we create fiction that is just a reflection of the energy that creates us. And now we're creating AI that is just another form of intelligence that maybe it will destroy humanity or destroy the planet. Who knows? But why bother fearing that stuff when we know that we're eternal beings of source? So the practice is always going to be rooted in the four pillars. It's never going to be anything more than that. If it ever becomes anything more than that, it's no longer Tya. It's got to be rebranded as something else. I own the trademark to the Tya practice. The four pillars is it. Whatever happens to this once I'm gone, I want to do everything I can to ensure that it's never anything more than the four pillars, period, period, period. We can create community. We can write books. We can have seminars. We can have retreats. We can build monuments to it if we want. I don't really feel the need to do that. We can do whatever we want with it, but it's always just going to be the four pillars. There's never going to be any fear. There's never going to be any judgment. There's never going to be any have to. You may be able to hear my lawn people right now. I think there's a loud leaf blower outside, so if you hear that, I'm sorry. But I really wanted to come on and just talk about belief systems, and that the reason that we don't judge other people's belief systems is because all of them are our own creation. Tya is a human created belief system. Yes, it was absolutely created in harmony with source. In my channeling of source, I have always had the intention of stripping away my ego and the matrix as much as possible and delivering to you pure source consciousness. Pure source consciousness is really nothing more than appreciation of all that is. That's why I do not feel the need to continue down a path of trans channeling for people, having them come up to me, sit in a hot seat, and ask the same questions to receive the same answers over and over and over again. I believe there's value in that. You know, I'm referring to Abraham somewhat here. There's value in that. That's where those folks are on their journey, and that is serving what their belief system is. So it's absolute perfection for them. That turned out not to be the thing for me, even though at one time I thought that's what my channeling life was going to be like. What happened? Well, I'm a solution-oriented person, and I wanted to create a solution beyond just these ideas that the stream or I was sharing via the stream. So I created a course, I created a practice. We called it Tya. It's in its infancy. And here we are realizing that, wow, this thing manifested. My true intention was to help people apply all of that universal knowledge in their lives as their way of being. Hence, we came up with the Tya operating system, a human created operating system, but created in harmony with Source, stripped of as much ego as I could possibly get it. And my intention is to keep it that way. And there have certainly been a few times over the past few years where I've experimented with bringing some very matrix elements in, and it never worked. It blew up because the intention was not to have a matrix driven belief system. We already have tons of those. I wanted to create something really unique. And I do believe that we've done that in the Tya practice because it's rooted in universal law and nothing more. But it does take discipline. It does help to have community. And I really urge everyone who wishes to practice this to find their path to that, to find their path to disciplining themselves, to making this their way of being, if they so choose. There's no mandate that you have to do it. And seek out and utilize community in the process. Not immerse yourself in the community and shut off everything else. It's not about that. But the community aspect is important. And I really want to drive that point home this week. Thank you all so much for watching. It's good to see those of you that were able to join me live. Always good to see you. I'm really enjoying doing these on Tuesday mornings. I hope you are as well. I will be back on for our afternoon Patreon program tomorrow, Wednesday. I believe we do that at 4 p.m. Pacific. And of course, I will be live Thursday night, as always, now with Claim Your Power Hour. And I believe that's 5. I may get those reversed. That's at 5 p.m. Pacific. And that will be on Patreon, but it will also be broadcast out on social media. So catch us, join live, bring your questions and comments. I always welcome those. Absolutely. Thank you so much for watching.